Hyun-woo stood in the corner of the grand reception hall, watching everything and everyone. That was his job. Watch, listen, and keep the human diplomats safe. The Nexus station floated in space between human territory and the Velthari Empire. It was neutral ground, a place where both sides could meet and talk about peace. Peace was a fragile thing. Hyun-woo knew this better than most. The reception hall was enormous, with windows that showed the stars outside. Hundreds of beings moved through the space. Humans in their formal suits, Velthari in their flowing robes that changed colors with their moods. Other aliens from smaller nations, watching and waiting to see what would happen between the two great powers. Hyun-woo adjusted his earpiece. His commander, Day 1, spoke through it. "Everything good on your end?" "All clear," Hyun-woo replied quietly. "The ambassador is talking with the Velthari trade minister. Nothing unusual. Stay sharp. These talks are important. One wrong move, and we could be back at war." Hyun-woo remembered the war. The First Contact Wars, they called it now. 3 years of brutal fighting when humanity first met the Velthari Empire. Both sides had lost so many people. The peace agreement 2 years ago had been fragile from the start. These new talks were supposed to make things better, stronger. If they failed, people would die again. A figure moved through the crowd toward him. Hyun-woo's hand moved slightly toward his weapon, then stopped. It was one of the Velthari cultural liaisons. Her name was Nari, and she worked with the human delegation, helping translate customs and meanings. She looked almost human, except for the slight golden tint to her skin and the way her eyes had 2 pupils instead of 1. Nari had been friendly during the past week. She smiled at humans when other Velthari didn't. She asked questions about Earth, about human food and music. Some of the diplomats liked her. Hyun-woo stayed cautious. She walked past him without looking directly at him. The hall was crowded and loud with conversation. Nari's shoulder brushed against his. Her voice was barely a whisper. So quiet, he almost missed it. "Come tonight, Doc 7. Alone. I show you truth." Then she was gone, moving through the crowd like nothing had happened. Hyun-woo's heart beat faster. He kept his face neutral, his eyes scanning the room like before. But his mind raced. What truth? Why Doc 7? Why alone? He touched his earpiece, thinking about reporting this to Day 1. His finger hovered over the button. Then he stopped. Something in Nari's voice had been wrong, not threatening, scared. Her hands had been shaking when she passed him. He'd seen her eyes dart toward the Velthari security officers standing near the main entrance. She was afraid of her own people. The reception continued for another 2 hours. Hyun-woo watched Nari from across the room. She smiled and talked with the human diplomats. She laughed at their jokes, but when she thought no one was looking, her face changed. She looked tired, worried. When the reception finally ended, Hyun-woo returned to the security office. Day 1 was there, reviewing reports from the other guards. "Anything to report?" Day 1 asked without looking up. Hyun-woo hesitated. "No, sir. Quiet night." Why didn't he tell the truth? He didn't know. Maybe it was the fear in Nari's eyes. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was stupidity. Day 1 looked at him then. The older man had gray in his hair and scars on his hands from the war. "You sure? You look tense." "Just tired," Hyun-woo said. "Long shift. Get some rest. Tomorrow's negotiations are the important ones. Trade agreements and territory disputes. We need to be sharp. Towner. Towners know. 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 Town. Hyun-woo nodded and left. He went to his small quarters on the station. The room had a bed, a desk, and a window showing the stars. He sat on the bed and thought, Doc 7. He pulled up the station schematics on his datapad. Dock 7 was in the old section of the station, the part built 20 years ago when the Nexus was first created. According to the records, it had been decommissioned 5 years ago. Officially, it was used for storage now. Why would Nari want to meet there? Every logical part of Hyunwoo's mind said this was a trap. It had to be. A Velthari agent luring a human security officer to a remote location. It was obvious. But if it was a trap, why had she looked so scared? Why risk being seen talking to him in a crowded room where security cameras were everywhere? Hyunwoo looked at the time. 22:47. In his whisper, Nari had said, "Tonight." She hadn't given an exact time. But late night made sense if this was secret. He had a choice to make. Go, and maybe walk into a trap. Maybe get himself killed, and cause an international incident that would restart the war. Or don't go. And maybe miss something important. Something that scared a Velthari liaison enough to risk approaching a human guard. Hyunwoo stood and walked to his window. Outside, ships moved through space. Human vessels and Velthari vessels. Side by side. 2 years of peace. Thousands of people working together on this station, trying to build trust between species that had been killing each other not long ago. What if Nari was trying to help? What if she knew something that could help the peace process? What if she needed help? Hyunwoo made his decision. He pulled on a dark jacket and checked that his weapon was charged. If this was a trap, he wouldn't go down easy. If it wasn't, he might need protection anyway. He left his quarters at 23:30. The station was quieter at night, but people still moved through the corridors. The Nexus never truly slept. He took a circuitous route, avoiding the main security checkpoints. He knew the station's camera blind spots from his work. The old section of the station was darker. The lights here were dimmer, older. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor. Dock 7 was at the end of a long corridor. The door was marked with faded warning signs about decompression hazards. Hyunwoo's hand was on his weapon as he approached. The door's control panel was old, but functional. It opened with a grinding sound that made him wince. Inside, the dock was dark except for emergency lights casting red shadows. Old equipment sat in corners, covered with dust. The far wall had a large window, showing space outside. "You came." Hyunwoo spun toward the voice. Nari stood near the far wall. She wasn't alone. Behind her, 3 figures huddled in the shadows. Humans. Thin, weak-looking humans in torn clothes. "Who are they?" Hyunwoo asked, his weapon half-drawn. Nari stepped forward, her hands raised. "They are truth," she said in her accented human speech. "They are why I bring you here." One of the humans looked up. Even in the dim light, Hyunwoo could see the fear and hope mixing in the person's eyes. "Please," the human whispered. "Please help us." And Hyunwoo knew, with absolute certainty, that agreeing to come tonight had been a terrible mistake. Not because it was a trap, but because now he knew something he couldn't unknow. Something that would change everything. Hyunwoo moved closer to the 3 humans, keeping Nari in his peripheral vision. His training screamed at him to be careful. But these people were clearly not a threat. They could barely stand. "Who are you?" he asked them softly. The one who had spoken earlier was a woman, maybe 30 years old. She had bruises on her arms and face. "My name is Haijin. This is Taemin and Young Soo. We're from the research vessel, Seong-ho." Hyunwoo's blood went cold. The Seong-ho was destroyed 6 months ago. Asteroid collision. Everyone died. "No," Haijin said, her voice shaking. "Not everyone. Not destroyed. That's what they wanted people to think." "They?" Hyunwoo looked at Nari. "The Velthari?" Nari's face showed shame. Her skin's golden tint had darkened, which Hyunwoo knew meant distress in her species. "My people. Some of my people. Not all. There is faction. Secret group. They take humans. They study you." "Study us?" Hyunwoo felt anger building in his chest. "What do you mean, study us?" "How?" Taemin, a young man who looked like he'd once been strong but was now thin as a stick, spoke up. They run tests. On our brains, our bodies. They want to know why humans are so good at adapting. Why we fight so well. Why we're so dangerous to them. Young Su, the third survivor, just stared at the floor. He had scars on his head, visible even in the dim light. Nari reached into her robe and pulled out a small data chip. This is evidence. All evidence. Locations of sites where they keep humans. Records of experiments. Names of Velthari involved. She held it out to Hyunwoo. You must take. You must tell your people. Hyunwoo reached for the chip, but stopped. Why? Why are you doing this? You're Velthari. This will make your people look terrible. It could restart the war, because it is wrong, Nari said simply. Her two pupilled eyes met his. I believe in peace. Real peace. Not peace built on lies and torture. Many Velthari believe this. But the faction is powerful. They have support in military and government. If we try to expose them from inside, we disappear. But humans are strong. Humans can stop this. The dock's door suddenly hissed. They all turned. Through the small window in the door, Hyunwoo saw lights moving in the corridor. Security patrol, he said. We need to hide. But the lights stopped right outside the door. Voices spoke in the Velthari language. Nari's face went pale. No, not patrol. They know. They followed me. The door began to open. Nari moved fast. She grabbed Hyunwoo's hand and shoved the data chip into his palm, closing his fingers around it. Run! Take them! Tell your people the truth. I can't leave you. You must! Nari pushed him toward the three humans. There is maintenance tunnel. Behind that panel. Go now. 6 Velthari security officers burst through the door, weapons drawn. They wore the black armor of the special forces, not the regular station security. Step away from the human, one shouted in accented human speech. Nari didn't step away. She stood between Hyunwoo and the officers. She spoke in her own language, words that sounded angry and defiant. One of the officers responded, then looked at Hyunwoo. You are under arrest for violating station protocols and entering restricted areas. He did nothing wrong. Nari shouted. I brought him here. Arrest me. Oh, we will, the officer said coldly. Then he spoke to his team in Velthari. 2 officers moved toward Nari. She didn't resist as they grabbed her arms. But she looked at Hyunwoo one last time. Her eyes said everything. Run. Save them. Tell the truth. The other 4 officers began moving toward Hyunwoo and the survivors. Hyunwoo made a split-second decision. He grabbed Haijin's arm. Run! He fired his weapon at the ceiling above the officers. Sparks showered down, and the emergency fire suppression system activated. Foam sprayed everywhere, filling the dock with white clouds. The panel! Haijin shouted. She and Taemin were already running. Young Su stumbled, and Hyunwoo caught him, half carrying him. They reached the wall panel. Taemin was already pulling it open. Behind it was a dark tunnel, barely wide enough for a person. Go, go. Hyunwoo pushed them in. Haijin went first, then Young Su. Taemin climbed in and turned back. Come on. Hyunwoo looked back through the foam. He could see Nari being dragged toward the door. She wasn't fighting. She'd given up resisting. One of the officers hit her, and she fell to her knees. Rage filled Hyunwoo. He started to move back toward her. Don't. Haijin's voice came from the tunnel. Don't throw away her sacrifice. She did this to save us. Honor that. The officers were coming through the foam now, weapons raised. Shots fired, hitting the wall near Hyunwoo's head. He climbed into the tunnel and pulled the panel closed behind him. The space was pitch black and cramped. He could hear the others crawling ahead of him. Which way? He asked. I remember, Taemin said from ahead. Nari made us memorize routes. She said someday we might need to run. Turn left at the junction. They crawled through the darkness. Hyun-woo's mind raced. Behind them, he could hear the officers opening the panel. They would be followed, but he had the data chip. He had the survivors. He had evidence that could expose a massive conspiracy. He also had started an international incident. He'd fired on Velthari officers. He'd helped prisoners escape. Even if those prisoners were human, even if they'd been tortured, he'd just committed acts that could restart a war. The tunnel branched. They went left as Taemin directed. The tunnel sloped downward. "Where does this lead?" Hyun-woo asked. "The maintenance level," Hee-jin answered. "Below the main station. Nari showed us once when she brought us medicine. She was helping us, keeping us alive. She risked so much." They crawled for what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. Finally, the tunnel opened into a larger space. They dropped down into a corridor filled with pipes and machinery. The hum of the station's systems was loud here. Hyun-woo pulled out his datapad, checking their location. They were 3 levels below the diplomatic section. Far from where he needed to be. But where did he need to be? He looked at the 3 survivors. They looked back at him with hope and fear and exhaustion. "We need medical attention for you," he said. "And I need to get this data chip to someone who can use it. But I can't go to station security. The Velthari will have reported what happened. I'm probably wanted for questioning already. There's a human on the station," Young-soo said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken since the dock. "A doctor. Jia. She works in the xenobiology lab. She's kind. She helped one of us once, before we were taken." Hyun-woo nodded. "I know her. She's trustworthy," he hoped. Right now, he had to trust someone. Station alarms began to sound above them, loud, blaring warnings that meant security lockdown. They were searching for him. Hyun-woo looked at the data chip in his hand. So small. So dangerous. Nari had sacrificed her freedom, maybe her life, to get this to him. "Come on," he said to the survivors. "Stay close. We're going to the xenobiology lab." As they moved through the maintenance corridors, Hyun-woo realized the full weight of his mistake. He'd thought the mistake was agreeing to come to Dock 7 tonight, but the real mistake was much bigger. He now knew the truth. He had evidence of war crimes. He had witnesses, and there was no going back. No pretending he didn't know. No simple return to his normal job. He'd crossed a line tonight, and whatever happened next would change everything. Above them, he could hear boots running, voices shouting. The search was on. The hunt had begun. The xenobiology lab was in the science wing of the station, 2 levels above where Hyun-woo and the survivors had emerged from the maintenance tunnels. Getting there without being seen was going to be difficult. Station security would be looking for them everywhere. Hyun-woo led them through service corridors, avoiding the main passages. The 3 survivors moved slowly. Young-soo kept stumbling, and Taemin had to help him walk. Whatever had been done to them, it had left deep damage. They reached a service elevator. Hyun-woo checked his datapad. The security system was in lockdown, but his credentials still worked for some areas. He used them to call the elevator, hoping it wouldn't flag their location. The elevator arrived empty. They got in, and Hyun-woo selected the science level. The doors closed. "What will you do?" Hee-jin asked him. "With the data chip? I don't know yet," Hyun-woo admitted. "First, we get you 3 safe. Then I figure out the next step. Whatever you do." Taemin said, "Don't let them bury this. Don't let them say it didn't happen. We lived through hell. Others are still there, still being experimented on. They deserve justice." The elevator stopped. The doors opened to the science level. It was quieter here, less busy than the diplomatic sections. Most of the labs ran automated experiments at night. They moved down the corridor to Lab 7, the xenobiology section. Through the window, Hyun-woo could see someone working at a desk. Jia. She was alone, studying something on her screen. Hyun-woo knocked on the door. Jia looked up, surprised. When she saw Hyun-woo and the three ragged people with him, her eyes went wide. She rushed to the door and opened it. Hyun-woo? What's going on? Who are these people? Then, she looked closer at the survivors and gasped. Oh no! What happened to them? It's a long story, Hyun-woo said. Can we come in? Please? We need help. Jia didn't hesitate. Of course, get in here. They entered the lab. Jia locked the door behind them and immediately began examining the survivors. Her face grew darker with each injury she found. These scars, she said, pointing to Young-Soo's head. These are surgical marks. Someone opened his skull, and these burns on Taemin's arms. Electrical stimulation, repeated exposure. And Hey Jin, your neurological responses are, she looked at Hyun-woo with horror. Someone experimented on these people, extensively. The Velthari, Hey Jin said quietly. Testing us. Jia's hands shook as she prepared medical scanners. This is torture. This is a violation of every treaty we have. While Jia worked on the survivors, setting up IVs and running scans, Hyun-woo examined the data chip. He plugged it into a secure terminal in the lab. The files began to load. What he saw made him sick. Hundreds of documents, video files, medical records, all detailing experiments on human subjects. The files went back 3 years. Starting even before the peace treaty was signed, there were locations listed, 5 different black sites in Velthari space. Names of scientists involved. Names of military officers who approved the programs. Budget allocations. Research goals. The stated purpose made Hyun-woo's blood boil. To understand human adaptive capacity and resistance to psychological pressure for military advantage. They were studying humans like lab animals to learn how to fight them better. One file was a video. Hyun-woo opened it. It showed a human strapped to a chair, electrodes attached to their head. A Velthari scientist was asking them questions. When the human didn't answer, electricity surged. The human screamed. Hyun-woo closed the file. He'd seen enough. The lab door's access panel beeped. Someone was trying to enter. Jia looked at Hyun-woo with fear. I locked it. They'll need override codes too. The panel beeped again. Override codes had been entered. The door began to open. Hyun-woo drew his weapon, positioning himself between the survivors and the door. Commander Daewon entered, alone. His face was grim. He looked at the scene. Hyun-woo with his weapon drawn. The 3 survivors receiving medical care. Jia frozen in place. Lower your weapon, Daewon said quietly. I'm not here to arrest you. How did you find us? Hyun-woo asked, not lowering the weapon. I'm your commander. I know how you think. I also know you accessed this level with your credentials 20 minutes ago. Security flagged it. Daewon looked at the survivors. Are these the humans from the Seongho? You knew? Hyun-woo felt betrayed. No. But when the Velthari reported that you'd assaulted their security officers and escaped with 3 unidentified humans, I put it together. The Seongho, disappearing 6 months ago. The Velthari being unusually insistent that we stop searching for survivors. Daewon's face hardened. I suspected something was wrong. I didn't have proof. I have proof now, Hyun-woo said. He gestured to the terminal showing the data files. Everything. Locations, names, victims. The Velthari have been torturing humans for 3 years. Daewon walked to the terminal. He read through the files, his expression growing darker with each page. Finally, he looked up. This changes everything. What do we do? Hyun-woo asked. Daewon was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, if we release this publicly, it will restart the war. Full-scale conflict. Millions will die. 8. If we don't release it, Hae-jin said from her medical bed, then my suffering meant nothing. The others still being tortured will never be freed. And the Velthari will keep doing this. She's right, Jia said. We can't keep this secret. It's wrong. Daewon rubbed his face. I know it's wrong, but I also know what war means. I fought in the last one. I saw human colonies burned from orbit. I saw Velthari cities turned to glass, starting another war. We didn't start this, Taemin said, his voice sharp despite his weakness. They did. They tortured us. They're still torturing others. We didn't make this choice. They did. Hyun-woo looked at the data chip. So much pain contained in such a small object. What if we don't make it public? He said slowly. What if we use it differently? Crafting. Everyone looked at him. Explain, Daewon said. Nari, the Velthari who gave this to me, she said there's a faction in her government that opposes this. Good Velthari who want real peace. What if we give them the evidence? Let them expose it from within their own government. It would be Velthari holding Velthari accountable, not humans attacking them. That's risky, Daewon said. How do we know which Velthari to trust? We don't, Hyun-woo admitted. But Nari trusted herself to get caught. To be arrested. Maybe killed. To get this information out. She believed in something. There must be others who believe too. Jia finished treating Young-soo and turned to them. There's another problem. Nari. She's probably being held by the faction that runs these experiments. If they think she betrayed them, they'll kill her, Heejin finished. Or worse, they'll experiment on her like they did to us. Hyun-woo felt the weight of that truth. Nari had saved these 3 humans. She'd risked everything to expose the truth. And now she was in the hands of her enemies. We have to get her out, he said. That's impossible, Daewon said. She'll be on a Velthari ship by now. We can't just raid a Velthari vessel. That really would start a war. Then what do we do? Hyun-woo demanded. Leave her to die after she saved these people? After she trusted us? The lab fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. The math was cruel. 3 humans saved. Maybe more could be freed if they used the data right. But Nari would be sacrificed. It was Young-soo who spoke next. His voice was quiet but firm. She gave us hope. For 6 months, she was the only one who showed us kindness. She brought us food when the rations were poisoned. She taught us Velthari words so we could understand what they were doing to us. She told us that not all Velthari were like our captors. She kept us human when they wanted to break us. He looked at Hyun-woo with eyes that had seen too much pain. If being human means anything, it means we don't abandon the people who save us. Even if it's hard. Even if it's dangerous. That's what makes us different from them. Hyun-woo looked at Daewon. The commander was staring at the survivors, and Hyun-woo saw the moment something changed in his face. You're right, Daewon said. We're going to save her. And we're going to expose this conspiracy. And if it starts a war... He paused. Then let history judge who was really responsible. Hyun-woo felt relief and fear in equal measure. They were committed now. No going back. We'll need help, he said. We can't do this alone. I'll contact Ambassador Tae-young, Daewon said. He needs to know about this. So does the rest of human leadership. As Daewon made secure calls, and Jia continued treating the survivors, Hyun-woo looked at the data chip again. Nari had told him to come to Dock 7. She'd said she would show him the truth. She'd been right. And now that he knew the truth, he had to act on it. Even if it was a mistake. Even if it cost everything. Because that's what humans did. The emergency meeting happened in a secure conference room, deep inside the human section of the Nexus station. Ambassador Tae-young sat at the head of the table. His face grave. Around him sat the key members of human leadership on the station. Admiral Woo-sung, commander of the human fleet stationed nearby. Dr. Eun-ji, the chief science advisor. Commander Dae-won, and Hyun-woo, who'd never expected to be in a room with such important people. The 3 survivors sat in chairs along the wall, still weak but insisting on being present. Jia stood with them, monitoring their condition. The data chip's contents were displayed on the large screen. Everyone had spent the last hour reviewing the files. The room was heavy with anger and grief. This is monstrous. Ambassador Tae-young said finally. War crimes don't even begin to describe this. They've been systematically torturing our people for 3 years. Even during the peace negotiations, Dr. Eunji added, her voice shaking. They were signing treaties with us while running experiments on captured humans. The betrayal is... It's an act of war, Admiral Woo-sung said bluntly. We should mobilize the fleet, demand the immediate closure of these sites and the return of all prisoners. If they refuse, we go in by force. And kill millions? Daewon asked. Because that's what would happen. Full-scale war between humanity and the Velthari Empire. We barely survived the last one. So we do nothing? The Admiral demanded. We let them keep torturing our people? I'm not saying we do nothing, Daewon replied. I'm saying we have to be smart about this. Ambassador Tae-young looked at Hyun-woo. You spoke with the Velthari who provided this information. Nari, what did she say about the situation within their government? Hyun-woo stood, feeling awkward but determined. She said there's a faction. People in the Velthari government and military who oppose these experiments, who want real peace. She said they can't expose this from inside, because the faction running the experiments is too powerful. But she thought humans could help. Help how? Dr. Eunji asked. I think... Hyun-woo said slowly, working through his thoughts. She wanted us to force the issue. To make it impossible for the Velthari government to ignore what's happening. If we present the evidence publicly, they'll have to respond. The good Velthari, the ones who oppose this, they could use the scandal to take down the faction responsible. That's a big assumption, Admiral Woo-sung said. Assuming there are enough good Velthari to make a difference. Nari risked her life, Heejin spoke up from her chair. She's probably being tortured right now. Just like we were. She believed there were enough good people in her government to make this right. I believe her. The room fell quiet. The weight of Heejin's words hung in the air. Finally, Dr. Eunji spoke. There's something else to consider. The data shows what they were studying. Human adaptability. Our creative problem-solving. Our resistance to psychological pressure. Do you know why they were so interested in these traits? She pulled up a specific file on the screen. Because during the first contact wars, we beat them in ways they couldn't predict. They had better technology, larger fleets, more resources. But humans kept winning battles they should have lost. We adapted faster. We found creative solutions. We didn't break under pressure. She looked around the room. They're studying us because they're afraid of us. They know that in a long war, human psychology is an advantage they can't match. And rather than accepting peace and cooperation, this faction decided to study us like lab rats, to find our weaknesses, which proves they're planning for another war, Admiral Woo-sung said. All the more reason to strike first. Or, Ambassador Tae-young said thoughtfully, all the more reason to prove them wrong. Everyone looked at him. Explain, the Admiral said. They think humans are just violent, adaptable warriors. That's what they fear. What if we show them something different? What if we demonstrate that human adaptability extends to diplomacy? That we can solve this crisis without war? With all due respect, Ambassador, Admiral Woo-sung said. These people tortured our citizens. Diplomacy seems insufficient. I'm not talking about just diplomacy, Ambassador Tae-young said. I'm talking about strategic action that achieves our goals without mass casualties. We want the black sites closed. We want the prisoners freed. We want the people responsible held accountable. And we want to preserve the peace. Impossible to get all of that, the Admiral said. Maybe not, Hyun-woo said. An idea was forming in his mind. What if we did a rescue mission? Everyone stared at him. Go on, Commander Daewon said. Nari is being held somewhere. Probably the Velthari flagship. The honor of the Ascendant. It's docked at the station right now. What if we extracted her, rescued her the way she rescued these three? That's insane, Admiral Woo-sung said. Raiding a Velthari flagship? Raiding a Velthari flagship. It would be an act of war, Dr. Eunji agreed. Not if we did it during a very public revelation, Ambassador Tae-young said, his eyes lighting up. What if we presented this evidence to the full Velthari Council during tomorrow's negotiations, made it impossible for them to deny or hide? And while their leadership was dealing with the scandal, a small team extracted Nari? It's still incredibly risky, Dr. Yunji said. Everything is risky now, Daewon said. The question is, what risk serves our values? Do we start a war? Do we hide the evidence and let the torture continue? Or do we try something that might actually work? Haijin stood up from her chair, wobbling slightly. Jia moved to steady her, but she waved her off. I want to say something, Haijin said. For 6 months, I was in hell. They did things to my mind that I can't forget. They hurt me in ways that won't fully heal, and the only light in that darkness was Nari. She risked her life repeatedly to help us. She gave us hope. She looked directly at Admiral Wu Sung. You want to honor the humans who suffered? Then honor what Nari showed us. That there are good people even among our enemies. That peace is possible if we're brave enough to fight for it. Not with weapons, with something harder. With trust and courage and doing the right thing, even when it's dangerous. Tears were running down her face. Don't let her sacrifice be for nothing. Don't prove the bad Velthari right by becoming the violent, vengeful species they think we are. Prove the good ones right. Prove that Nari was right to trust us. The room was silent. Admiral Wu Sung looked uncomfortable. Finally, he nodded. The girl makes a point. We're not just fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for what kind of species we want to be. Ambassador Tae-young stood. Then it's decided. Tomorrow, during the negotiations, I will present this evidence to the full Velthari Council. All of it. Every file. Every video. Every name. And I will demand immediate action. He looked at Daewon and Hyun-woo. While I'm doing that, you'll assemble a rescue team. Small, fast, quiet. Get Nari out of that ship. And if there are other Velthari dissidents being held with her, get them too. It's still dangerous, Dr. Yunji warned. Everything worth doing is dangerous, Hyun-woo said. He surprised himself with his confidence. But it's the right thing to do. Over the next few hours, they planned. Ambassador Tae-young would request an emergency session of the Velthari Council. He would present the evidence systematically, making it impossible to deny. The other human ambassadors would ensure the meeting was recorded and transmitted to both human and Velthari populations. Meanwhile, Hyun-woo would lead a team onto the honor of the Ascendant. They would have a narrow window, while the Velthari leadership was distracted by the revelation. Daewon would provide tactical support. Jia would come along because she understood Velthari biology and could handle any medical emergencies. And the 3 survivors insisted on coming too. We know the ship's layout, Taemin said. Nari made us memorize it. She said knowledge was survival. Ari's 70. Ari's 70. Besides, Young-soo added quietly, we owe her. She kept us alive. We don't abandon our own. As the meeting ended and people dispersed to prepare, Hyun-woo found himself standing alone with the data chip again. Such a small thing. But it had changed everything. Nari had whispered to him to come to Dock 7. She'd said she'd show him the truth. She'd done more than that. She'd challenged him to be better. To be the kind of human who did the right thing, even when it was hard. Tomorrow, they would find out if he was up to the challenge. Tomorrow, they would find out if humanity deserved the trust Nari had placed in them. Tomorrow, everything would change. Again. The Velthari Council chamber was packed. Every ambassador, every delegate, every observer who could claim a reason to be there, had crowded in. The tension was thick enough to cut. Ambassador Tae-young stood at the central podium, facing the semicircle of Velthari Council members. Their robes shifted colors with their emotions. Curiosity, annoyance, suspicion. Honored Council, Tae-young began. I have requested this emergency session because evidence has come to light that threatens the peace between our peoples. A Velthari counselor spoke, his voice sharp. More human accusations? More delays to the negotiations? Not accusations, Tae-young said calmly. Evidence. I will now present documentation of systematic war crimes committed by elements within your government against human citizens. 18U. He activated the display. The first file appeared. The Vel-3 council chamber erupted in noise. While this happened, 3 levels below in the docking bay, Hyun-woo and his team approached the honor of the Ascendant. The team was small: Hyun-woo, Dae-won, Ji-ah, and the 3 survivors. They wore maintenance uniforms, carrying equipment cases that hid their weapons. The station was on high alert because of the council session, but that worked in their favor. Everyone's attention was elsewhere. The honor of the Ascendant was massive, a warship that had seen action in the First Contact Wars. Its hull bore scars from human weapons. Most of its crew was currently attending the council session or watching it on screens throughout the station. Security will be minimal, Dae-won whispered. But minimal for a Vel-3 flagship is still significant. Stay sharp. They approached the boarding ramp. A single guard stood there, looking bored. Tae-min stepped forward. He spoke in Vel-3, words Nari had taught him. The guard looked surprised but waved them through. What did you say? Hyun-woo asked, as they entered the ship. I told him we were here to repair environmental systems in the detention area. Nari taught me the right technical terms. Vel-3 guards don't usually question maintenance workers. The interior of the ship was different from human vessels. The corridors curved in ways that felt wrong to human eyes. The lighting was dimmer, with colors shifted toward the blue spectrum. Hae-jin led them through the passages. She moved with certainty, despite her weakness. Nari showed us the ship's layout on her datapad, she explained quietly. She said if we ever escaped, we should know how to navigate Vel-3 vessels. I thought she was just keeping our minds active. Now I understand. She was preparing us for this. They moved deeper into the ship. Twice they passed Vel-3 crew members, but the crew barely glanced at them. Maintenance workers were invisible, even to aliens. The detention area was in the ship's lower levels. As they approached, they saw 2 guards stationed outside. This is where it gets difficult, Dae-won muttered. Young-soo stepped forward before anyone could stop him. He walked directly toward the guards, stumbling, making himself look sick. He spoke in Vel-3, his voice weak. The guards moved toward him, concerned. In that moment of distraction, Dae-won and Hyun-woo struck, quick, precise, non-lethal. The guards went down. Nicely done, Dae-won said. They dragged the unconscious guards into a side corridor and bound them. Then, they opened the detention area door. Inside were cells. Force fields shimmered across the openings. And behind those fields were prisoners, Vel-3 prisoners. Dozens of them. All wearing simple clothes, all looking thin and scared. They stared at the humans in shock. They're all Vel-3, Ji-ah whispered. Nari isn't being held with human prisoners. She's being held with her own people. Dissidents, Hae-jin said, understanding. The faction must be imprisoning any Vel-3 who oppose them. One of the prisoners stood and approached the force field. She spoke in accented human language. You are humans? Why are you here? We're here for Nari, Hyun-woo said. Where is she? The Vel-3 woman's face showed surprise, then something like hope. Nari is in the isolation cell. End of the corridor. But you cannot free just her. We are all imprisoned unjustly. We all opposed the experiments on your people. Hyun-woo looked at Dae-won. They were supposed to extract one person. Could they get dozens out? We get all of them, Hyun-woo decided. We didn't come here to do half the job. Hyun-woo. We end a dawn. Dae-won nodded. Ji-ah, can you handle the cell controls? Ji-ah moved to the control panel. Her fingers flew over the interface. Vel-3 systems are different, but the basic logic is similar. I think. Yes. Got it. The force fields deactivated. All of them, simultaneously. The prisoners stared in disbelief. Then they began to move. Slowly at first, then faster. They flooded out of their cells. "Nari!" Hyunwoo shouted. "Where's Nari?" "Here," a weak voice called from the end of the corridor. Hyunwoo ran. The isolation cell was at the end. A small room with reinforced walls. Inside, Nari sat on the floor. She had bruises on her face and arms. Her golden skin had turned gray, but she was alive. "You came," she whispered, looking at him with those strange two-pupiled eyes. "You came for me." "Of course we did," Hyunwoo said, helping her stand. "You saved 3 humans. We don't abandon people who save us." Nari's eyes filled with tears. I thought they would kill me, or worse." "Not today," Hyunwoo said. "Today, you're going free." Back in the main detention area, the freed Velthari prisoners were organizing themselves with remarkable speed. The woman who had spoken earlier approached Day 1. "I am Counselor Miryan. I was imprisoned 3 months ago for opposing the Black Site programs. Many of us here are officials, scientists, military officers who tried to stop this madness. We are grateful for this rescue. But how do you plan to escape? There are hundreds of crew on this ship. We're about to have help," Day 1 said, checking his communicator. "The evidence is being presented to the council right now. Any second." In the council chamber, Ambassador Tae-young had just finished showing the 3rd video file. The images of human prisoners being tortured had left many Velthari counselors looking physically ill. "This is fabrication," one counselor shouted. "Human propaganda." "Then explain these medical records," Tae-young said calmly. "These research notes. These budget allocations from your own military. These names of Velthari officers who authorized these experiments." He displayed file after file. The chamber descended into chaos. Velthari counselors were shouting at each other. Some were trying to leave. Others were demanding answers. Then Counselor Miryan's recorded message began playing across all screens. Tae-young had found it in the data chip files. "My name is Counselor Miryan," the recording said. "I am being held prisoner by the faction running these experiments because I tried to expose them. They have imprisoned hundreds of loyal Velthari who opposed their crimes. They claim to act for our empire's security, but they threaten everything we should stand for. I call upon all honorable Velthari to end this. To choose justice over fear." The council chamber erupted. Because that message was broadcasting not just in the chamber, but across the entire station. Across every Velthari ship in the area. Across communication channels to Velthari space, everyone was seeing it. On the honor of the Ascendant, alarms began blaring. But the alarms weren't about the escaped prisoners. They were about the crew watching the broadcasts, arguing with each other, choosing sides. The ship's internal communication system crackled. A Velthari officer's voice spoke in their language. He says there's a mutiny. Ship's officers are divided. Some support the Council's reformist faction. Others support the Black Site programs. They're fighting each other. Then we move now, Day 1 said. While they're distracted. Everyone. Follow us. Stay together. They moved through the ship in a large group. Everywhere they went, they saw Velthari crew members in heated arguments. Some fights were turning physical. The ship was tearing itself apart. They reached the boarding ramp. The guard who had let them in earlier was gone. The docking bay beyond was in chaos. Velthari and human security forces were facing each other, weapons drawn but not firing. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. Ambassador Tae-young's voice boomed across every speaker in the station. The evidence is clear. The Velthari Empire has been conducting illegal experiments on human prisoners. But not all Velthari supported this. Many opposed it. Many were imprisoned for their opposition. Humanity demands justice. But we also recognize that this is not the action of an entire species. This is the crime of a faction. A faction that has now been exposed. Another voice joined his. A Velthari voice. One of the council members. I am High Counselor Kevrin. I have just voted with the majority of the council to immediately disband the military intelligence faction responsible for these crimes. All black sites are ordered closed. All prisoners are ordered released. Any officer who refuses these orders is guilty of treason. A cheer went up from the freed Velthari prisoners. On the docking bay floor, several Velthari officers lowered their weapons. "It's over," Nari whispered. "The faction is finished." But it wasn't completely over. From the honor of the Ascendant, a group of Velthari officers in black armor emerged. They saw the escaped prisoners and raised their weapons. "Traitors," one screamed. "You've destroyed everything." They opened fire. Hyunwoo pushed Nari down as shots flew overhead. Day One returned fire, aiming carefully to wound rather than kill. The freed Velthari prisoners scattered for cover. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. Station security, both human and Velthari, moved in from all sides. The black-armored officers were overwhelmed and surrendered. In the sudden silence that followed, Hyunwoo helped Nari to her feet again. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I am alive," she said. "Because of you. Because humans chose to save a Velthari who saved humans. That is what peace should be." Over the next hours, the situation stabilized. The Velthari Council formally dissolved the intelligence faction. The black sites were raided by joint human-Velthari forces. Hundreds of human prisoners were freed. The Velthari officials responsible were arrested. 3 days later, Hyunwoo stood at a viewport, watching ships move through space. Human vessels and Velthari vessels, working together to transport freed prisoners back to their homes. Nari approached him. She looked better now, with medical treatment and rest. Her golden skin had regained some of its color. "You are thinking deep thoughts," she said. "I'm thinking about mistakes," Hyunwoo said. "When you told me to come to Dock 7 that night, I thought it was a mistake to agree. I thought I was walking into danger." "You were walking into danger," Nari said. "That was not wrong, but it wasn't a mistake," Hyunwoo continued. "Coming to meet you. Helping those prisoners. Starting all of this. It felt like a mistake at the time. But it was the most important thing I've ever done." Nari smiled. "In my language, we have a saying. The bravest choices always feel like mistakes at first. Because if they felt safe, they would not require bravery." Jia joined them at the viewport. Behind her came the 3 survivors, now healthy and recovering. Heejin, Taemin, and Youngsu had become symbols of the new peace, humans who had suffered but chosen forgiveness over revenge. "The new treaty is being signed tomorrow," Jia said. "Joint oversight committees. Shared research stations. Educational exchanges. It's everything the old peace should have been. It's better," Heejin said, "because it's built on truth instead of lies." Taemin looked at Nari. "What will you do now? You're famous. A hero to the Velthari reform movement." "I will work for the new government," Nari said, "making sure this never happens again. Building real trust between our peoples." She looked at Hyunwoo. "And what about you?" "Me?" Hyunwoo shrugged. "I guess I go back to my job. Protecting diplomats. Watching for threats." "You will be bored," Nari said with a smile. "After saving galaxies, standing in corners will be dull." "Maybe," Hyunwoo admitted. "But boring sounds nice for a while." They stood together, human and Velthari, watching the ships navigate the space between worlds. The Nexus station had been built as neutral ground. Now it was becoming something more, a symbol of what different species could build when they chose trust over fear. Ambassador Tae-young had been right. Humanity's real strength wasn't just adaptability in war. It was adaptability in everything. The ability to change, to grow, to extend compassion even to former enemies. Nari had whispered for him to come that night. She'd offered to show him truth. The truth was this. Peace wasn't the absence of conflict. It was the choice to fight for something better. To take risks. To make what seemed like mistakes in pursuit of what was right. Hyunwoo looked at his reflection in the viewport. The same face, but somehow different. changed by everything that had happened. "Hey," Young-Soo said suddenly, "do you think they'll make a movie about this?" Everyone laughed. It felt good to laugh after so much tension. "Probably," Jia said. "Though they'll get everything wrong. As long as they get the important part right," Heejin said. That one human agreed to take a risk, and one Velthari had the courage to ask. And together, they changed everything. Nari looked at Hyun-woo. "She told me to come tonight." Agreeing was a mistake. "That is what you thought." "Yes, that's what I thought," Hyun-woo confirmed. "And now?" Hyun-woo smiled. "Now I think it was the best mistake I ever made." Outside the viewport, a new ship arrived. It bore the symbols of the Joint Human-Velthari Research Initiative. The first of many. The beginning of a real partnership. The galaxy was changing, and it had started with a whispered invitation in a crowded room. A choice that felt like a mistake. A human who said yes when caution said no. Sometimes the mistakes we make aren't mistakes at all. Sometimes they're just courage wearing a different face. And sometimes, those moments of courage change everything.